how federal employees work has completely changed. For years, most of them were given the trust and confidence to accomplish their task without being micromanaged or recorded on camera. But this is a whole new era. This is an era where every move you make could be captured. How will this impact you? Let's get into it. Almost every agency and office has killed the idea of teleworking. Working from home has been around for over a decade, and many times it was used as a recruitment incentive to get highly qualified individuals to come and work in your agency. But now we have a lot of agencies saying, come to the office or get fired. There's no coffee badging going on around here. And if you're not familiar with the concept, coffee badging is this idea where people go into the office for 1 or 2 hours and then they go home for the rest of the day. Now that might happen in the private sector, but in the public sector, that's not happening. In the government, they're going to detect when you come into the building, because you're scanning your ID card most of the time. They understand when you log into your computer, because that's being captured as well, and then the codes on your time card. So they're comparing all of that to look for any inconsistencies. If there are inconsistencies, you will be disciplined. This is by listing you as AWOL, working from an unauthorized spot, failure to comply, and being sick without providing documentation. Many federal employees have a lot more time to work when they're at home. They have better internet connection. They have higher productivity rates when they're at home. But what's being done with the return to office is really, it's political signaling. It's showing that we don't trust the federal workforce, so we're going to bring them back into the office, regardless if it costs more for us and them. And it really does. It costs more for the federal worker without a doubt, because you have commuting costs, you have car repair costs, you have gas costs, you have all of that. But for the agency's perspective, they don't have enough space a lot of times. So you're going to have to lease more buildings, you're going to have to pay on the utility bills, all of that, it's additional cost. Then we also have the 5 bullet point email. This has become a mandatory weekly requirement at a lot of agencies that are willing to use disciplinary measures if their employees do not comply. Now, a lot of people outside of the federal government, they looked at this and they're like, what's the big deal? Just send the email. I always have to respond to my supervisor or I'm out of a job. You should do the same thing, lazy federal worker. That was the message coming out from a lot of people on social media. There's a few reasons why people were a little weary of this email. For one, it felt like a threat. 2, it skipped the chain of command. 3, it came from Elon Musk. And 4, it seemed performative. Next up, we have agencies that are reminding federal employees that there's no expectation of privacy here, except for maybe the bathroom. Outside of that, we'll seize your equipment, we'll take your laptop, we'll take your phone at any point we want. If we hear you saying something in the hallway, we'll use that against you. There's no expectation of privacy. There never really was, but it's another reminder. And above and beyond that, we have agencies that are exploring other ways. What are some other ways that we can surveil our employees? And we've seen a VA senior official warn employees that virtual meetings were being secretly recorded to detect anyone who may not be loyal to the president. At the State Department, IT staff said that new monitoring software has been loaded onto computers. And another supervisor sent out a warning that meetings and phone calls within the agency were being monitored by an artificial intelligence tool. Some people think this is to analyze meetings and to determine if anyone's anti-President Trump or if anyone's trying to be inclusive, if there's any DEI talk that's got to go. So maybe that's why they're observing. That's why they're monitoring. I think there's a clear line between not liking President Trump for whatever reason and then being disloyal. Just because someone doesn't like him doesn't mean that they're going to be disloyal. That line, it seems to be blurred recently. More and more recently, it seems like they're blurring that line. Now, if you've ever worked in a federal office, you would probably understand that most workers strive to be apolitical. No one's going around spouting their opinion unless they feel very comfortable with you. But if you did want to have a private conversation, it seems like the best place for that right now is probably the bathroom. Overall, the office has become more stressful. The federal government is also potentially creating a big problem for itself when it comes to firing younger workers. And that's ultimately what we're seeing here, because when you look at probationary workers, a good chunk of them are new to the government, like completely new. And people that are new to the government, a lot of times they could be younger. They could be students, recent student graduates, people like that. In the federal workforce right now, the people that are under 30 years old make up 8%, roughly 8% of the workforce. So that means over 90% of federal workers are over the age of 30. In fact, some studies suggest that 30% of the federal workforce, they could retire right now. But when you look at the probationary purge, that's getting rid of a lot of young workers. And even if you survive that, just look at the federal workforce for what it is. The RIFs, the reduction in forces, the number one category for a lot of agencies, not the Department of Defense, but for the rest of the agencies, the number one category is tenure. And then they look at years in the government. So years in the government, if you have 20, 30, 40, 50 years, you're going to be more protected than the person that has 5 or less. So you're creating an environment that's really getting rid of younger workers. And you're retaining the senior folks, the people that are 60 years old plus. So what's going to happen as 2025 progresses, 2026, you're going to see that the federal workforce is going to age. Right now, the average age is 47. But with these efforts, you're going to see that age bump up into the 50s. And younger workers are just not going to have that desire to come into the federal government. Michelle from Partnership for Public Service says, we're losing the talent that we need to run the country. Add to this the hiring freeze and the new requirement that you can only hire one person for every 4 people that leave the federal government. Then you have the Presidential Management Fellowship Program that's completely axed. That was used for 45 years to get young people into the federal government. Agencies can't serve the public without a workforce. At some point, the federal government is going to be looking to pivot, and they're going to try to entice younger people to join. A partnership survey from 2024 says 67% of 18 to 34-year-olds think federal jobs help communities, but 68% have never considered applying. That was before the hiring freeze, before the mass firing, before disparaging the federal workforce. Now, there's probably a lot less people that are even considering it. You have younger people graduating from university that might have been interested in exploring a public sector career. Well, they have even more incentive today to get into the private sector, to go after bigger money. Michelle said, we're losing Generation Z and they won't come back. A former senior official said that the passion will remain, but even they admit that we'll have gaps and no junior staff, no skills. Workforce planning has been a big deal, has been a big concern within the federal workforce. GAO flagged it ever since 2001 as a high-risk category. So this just kind of pours gas onto the fire. Michelle goes on to say they're devastated. Years of work to retain young talent undone overnight. President Biden's team pushed internships. He encouraged people to come into the federal government. And if you were to ask me in 2024 or earlier, if you were to ask me, hey, what's the best bet? How can I get a competitive advantage? I'm trying to get into the federal government. I would have told you a great way is to be a student or a recent graduate. That's a great way where you can stand out from all the other people that are applying. That's a different path that you can get into the government. Well, those positions have been reducing. These efforts are going to show you that that pathway might not be used as much anymore, especially under the threats of a shrinking federal workforce. But the feeling out there right now is a lot of people are just not even thinking about the opportunity, not even considering becoming a federal employee, at least not under this administration. Maybe if another president comes into office, they might reconsider it. And we have tens of thousands of federal workers right now. They're resigning. And thankfully, there's a lot of states out there that are welcoming them to apply for state government jobs. There's a lot of governors that have been very vocal about, please come to our state and apply. We need your talent here. Likely, we're going to see more job cuts. We'll see more surveillance. Maybe they'll introduce some new software that can do a better job on spying when it comes to what the federal workers are doing. And overall, there's going to be a lot more drama. So the email requirement is going to continue. Elon Musk is on his way out the door. He should be gone in May. That's next month. He should be out of Doge. But Doge in itself will remain all the way until July 4th, 2026. After that date, Doge is supposed to dissolve. But President Trump said recently that he wants the Doge people to stay in the agency. He would like them to be full-time employees at that agency. But whether they stay or not, it's completely up to them. A lot of people are saying, well, they can command so much higher salaries in the private sector. So how are you going to incentivize them to stay in the agency? It's not going to be work from home because you can't do that, right? So telework's off the table. How are you going to incentivize these people to take a less salary, a much lower salary, and still perform at a high level within these agencies? We talked a little bit about the Supreme Court ruling that came out not too long ago. And the main issue with that is they found unions do not have sufficient standing to actually bring forth that lawsuit. So this could be because unions should not be representing probationary workers. But some probationary workers, they have over 3 years. So they're only on probation because they accepted a new job. So in that type of situation, if you're like a supervisor who's under probation, you should still maintain your rights, your appeal rights. So the whole thing's still getting worked out. But if you want to know a little bit more about that, check this video out next. Stay updated by signing up to the free newsletter down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.